this ghetto thug, DiJonai Carrington, on your screen, she cannot play another WNBA game ever again. This ghetto thug you see on your screen, DiJonai Carrington, posted white privilege and tagged the Indiana Fever after she got ejected after raking Sophie Cunningham across the head. When you can literally injure yourself and get injured in multiple ways, DiJonai Carrington raked Sophie Cunningham across the head. It got reviewed by the officials. They ended up and deemed it as a flagrant foul too and ejected her from the game.
Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today, I'm here with another major and exciting WNBA story. Something happened during today's game that instantly caught everyone's attention. During the matchup between the Sky and the Fever, an unexpected moment unfolded that quickly became the biggest talking point among fans. So what exactly happened, and why is everyone discussing it? Stay with us because we're about to break it all down. But first, take a look at this video clip, and then we'll dive straight into the full story.
20 was an absolute steal for DiJonai Carrington. Here's Cunningham up ahead of the field, lays it in, plus the foul, and then Cunningham gets into the face of DiJonai Carrington.
It only took one play to turn an already heated WNBA matchup into a major controversy. Sophie Cunningham was driving to the basket on a fast break when DiJonai Carrington came from behind and made eye contact with her. Cunningham hit the floor hard, and the officials immediately reviewed the play. After watching the replay, they upgraded the foul to a flagrant 2, which led to Carrington being ejected and ended her night almost instantly. But the controversy didn't stop there because after leaving the court, Carrington shifted the conversation in a completely different direction.
Going on in the W.
Hold on.
Take a walk with me, take a walk with me, take a walk with me. There is craziness going on in the WNBA. DiJonai Carrington tweeted out white privilege from the locker room of a game that she was playing in. Get this. She fouled Sophie Cunningham hard. Sophie Cunningham, obviously a white person, fouls her hard. Flagrant 2, gets ejected, goes to the locker room and tweets out white privilege in the middle of the game. Now here's the kicker to me. A flagrant 2 has to be contact that can lead to an injury that looks successful.
After the game, she shared a post on social media, suggesting that the situation was about white privilege. In an instant, what began as a basketball play turned into a much bigger debate involving race, officiating, player treatment, social media, and the growing attention surrounding Sophie Cunningham. But this is where the story becomes even more interesting. Was this simply an emotional response after a frustrating ejection? Was Carrington trying to highlight a bigger issue about how players are treated? Or did her social media post make an already controversial moment even more difficult to defend? And what exactly happened between Carrington and Cunningham during that play? Let's break down the entire situation and take a closer look at everything that unfolded.
Yeah, so Carrington is a dirty player, probably the dirtiest player in the league. And then she has the audacity to go online right after her ejection and claim that she got ejected because of racism. She definitely learned well from Angel Reese. Whenever something goes against you, just pull out that race card. I think she's jealous of my natural blonde hair. She'll never have this hair. I literally got clotheslined in the air, and this clown has to turn it into race.
At first, many people viewed it as nothing more than an aggressive basketball play. But did the contact go too far? Could Carrington face additional disciplinary action from the league? And perhaps the biggest question of all, could this incident have an impact on her future in the WNBA? Before jumping to any conclusions, there's something very important to understand. Following the incident, DiJonai Carrington was suspended by the WNBA. Cunningham, however, wasn't about to act like nothing had happened. Right after the contact, she confronted Carrington, but teammates and staff quickly stepped in before the situation could escalate any further. What stood out even more was Cunningham's reaction afterward. She called the foul unnecessary, but at the same time, she didn't seem interested in turning the incident into something even bigger than it already was. That approach matters because in professional sports, emotions can explode within seconds. One player feels disrespected, another believes they're being unfairly targeted, a referee makes a controversial call, fans immediately take sides, and before long, everyone is arguing over a moment that lasted less than 2 seconds. Cunningham's message was clear. She wasn't going to let the incident define everything. Online, however, the story quickly took on a life of its own.
These types of kind of dirty fouls, so to speak, this is the same player that poked Caitlin Clark in the eye with her long-ass fingernails last year. Take a look.
This clip is going viral of Caitlin Clark getting poked in the eye by DiJonai Carrington. It happened in the first quarter when Clark tried passing the ball to her teammate Aaliyah Boston, but Carrington poked Clark in the eye while trying to deflect the pass. No foul was called, but Clark had to take a second to regain her composure. In the third quarter, DiJonai was defending Caitlin again when Caitlin hit DiJonai in the head, knocking out one of her contacts. No foul was called, but DiJonai had to take a second to put her contact back in.
Another important point to consider is that DiJonai Carrington has previously been involved in several physical and controversial moments involving Caitlin Clark. Now, after this flagrant 2 foul on Sophie Cunningham, those past incidents are once again being brought into the spotlight. Many WNBA fans believe that players who repeatedly engage in dangerous or overly physical play should face stronger disciplinary action, especially when those actions could put women's basketball and some of its biggest stars at risk. Some commentators have also called for Carrington to receive a suspension. That raises another big question. Will the WNBA take further action against Carrington, or will this controversy eventually fade away? After being ejected, Carrington later shared a social media post referencing white privilege and the Indiana fever. That single post immediately changed the conversation because people were no longer only debating whether the foul was intentional. They also began arguing about whether race played any role in the decision. This is where it's important to be careful. There is a major difference between saying Carrington made that social media post and claiming the officials ejected her because of race. The first is documented. The second has not been established. In fact, Cunningham herself rejected the idea that the call was racially motivated. She pointed out that she had previously been ejected for a similar type of play. That doesn't settle every discussion about officiating, but it does show that the situation is more complicated than simply saying the league punished Carrington because Cunningham is white. At this point, there is no verified evidence supporting that claim. That's important because social media often turns opinions into conclusions before all the facts are available. This is also where fans became deeply divided. Some looked at the play and believed Carrington committed a dangerous foul, was ejected, and then shifted the blame elsewhere. Others argued that she was expressing frustration over what she believed was unequal treatment. Those are two very different viewpoints, and neither should automatically be accepted as proven fact. It's also worth remembering that we don't fully know what Carrington was feeling in that moment. She had just been ejected from a high-profile game, watched the foul upgraded after review, walked off the court while the crowd reacted, and then shared an emotional social media post. Athletes are human. They get frustrated, react emotionally, and sometimes say things they may choose to express differently later. But being emotional doesn't automatically make someone right, and being mistaken doesn't mean every emotion behind those feelings was fake. That's the kind of nuance that often disappears on social media. Now let's address another claim that has been circulating online. You may have seen posts suggesting that Carrington directly threatened Cunningham. That's a serious accusation, but based on the credible reporting currently available, it should not be presented as an established fact. What has been clearly documented is Carrington's controversial social media statement following her ejection. That is verified. However, a direct threat toward Cunningham is a separate claim, and there is no reliable reporting confirming that such a threat was made. That distinction is important because once words like threatened, attacked, targeted, or hated enter the conversation, people naturally assume something much more serious happened. Without evidence, repeating those claims as facts can quickly turn commentary into misinformation. For this story, we're focusing only on information that can actually be supported, and the reality is there's already plenty of drama without adding anything that hasn't been verified. Another major reason this incident gained so much attention is because Sophie Cunningham has become one of the most talked about players in the WNBA away from the court. Recently, she made public comments about transgender athletes competing in women's sports, and those remarks generated significant attention, support, and criticism. That debate has continued to follow her into games, with protests and public demonstrations surrounding the issue, while the WNBA has already dealt with incidents connected to the broader discussion. Because of that, when Carrington's foul happened, it didn't occur in isolation. Fans were already closely watching Cunningham. Many people had strong opinions about her, and many also had strong opinions about Carrington. That's why a single basketball play quickly became something much bigger. Under different circumstances, the same contact might have only sparked a few hours of sports debate. Instead, it became another chapter in a much larger cultural conversation. This is part of what professional athletes have to deal with in 2026. The game doesn't end when the final buzzer sounds. The moment players leave the court, millions of people online become unofficial commentators. Video clips are reposted, slow-motion replays spread across social media, screenshots circulate, fans analyze body language, people search for past incidents, and suddenly a moment that lasted only 2 seconds turns into a debate that continues for an entire day or even longer. Some fans defended Carrington, others defended Cunningham, some criticized the officials, others criticized Carrington's social media post, and many even brought up completely unrelated controversies involving both players. That's when situations like this become especially complicated because once people choose a side on social media, every new piece of information tends to be viewed through that same perspective. If you support Carrington, you'll likely see the situation one way. If you support Cunningham, you'll probably see it very differently. And if you're already against one of the teams, your opinion may be completely different again. At that point, the basketball itself almost becomes secondary. Now let's get to the question everyone is asking. Was it a dirty foul? That's something fans can continue to debate, but the officials made their decision very clear. After reviewing the play, they ruled that the contact met the standard for a flagrant 2 foul. Cunningham was driving in for a layup when Carrington made high contact from behind. Because the officials determined the contact was both unnecessary and excessive, they ejected Carrington from the game. Fever head coach Stephanie White supported the decision, but she also said she didn't necessarily believe Carrington acted with malicious intent. That distinction is important because dangerous contact and malicious intent are not always the same thing. A player can make a reckless or overly aggressive play without intending to seriously injure someone. Professional basketball moves incredibly fast, and players are forced to make split-second decisions. Sometimes those decisions are poor, sometimes they're too aggressive, and sometimes they lead to serious consequences. That's exactly why the rules exist. If there's one part of this entire situation that could stay with Carrington longer than the foul itself, it's likely the social media post. The reason is simple. The foul can be judged using basketball rules, but the post opened an entirely different conversation. Once you publicly suggest that race influenced an officiating decision, you're making a very serious accusation, and serious accusations require solid evidence. Without that evidence, people are naturally going to question the claim, and that's exactly what happened. Cunningham rejected the suggestion, fans began arguing, sports media picked up the story, and suddenly the original foul became secondary to the debate surrounding the post. This is one of the biggest challenges modern athletes face. They have huge platforms and can respond instantly, but once something is posted online, they no longer control how it's interpreted. Their words can become headlines, viral clips, endless debates, and remain online long after the emotions that inspired them have faded. At the same time, it's also important not to portray Cunningham as a perfect hero simply because she was on the receiving end of this foul. She's a fierce competitor who has experienced her own share of controversial moments, and some of her public comments have sparked major debate. She has also previously been involved in a high-profile flagrant foul incident herself. So if we're going to demand consistency from Carrington, then the same standard should apply to everyone. The standard shouldn't be that it's acceptable when your favorite player does it. The real standard should be whether the action stayed within the rules, and if it didn't, the same consequences should apply no matter who committed the foul. That's how professional sports maintain fairness. Perhaps the most interesting part of this entire story isn't Carrington or Cunningham. It's the environment surrounding the WNBA today. The league is more popular than ever, players have larger platforms, the audience continues to grow, and every controversy spreads across the internet within minutes. That means players are no longer just competing against the team in front of them. They're performing under the constant attention of millions of viewers. Every hard foul can become a national debate, every facial expression can become a meme, every social media post can become headline news, and every disagreement can grow into a much larger cultural discussion. That's an incredible opportunity for the league, but it also comes with tremendous responsibility because the more attention the WNBA receives, the more carefully players, coaches, officials, and fans need to handle situations like these. Now the biggest question becomes, what happens next for Carrington? The league could review the incident further and decide whether any additional discipline is necessary. But regardless of what happens officially, the debate on social media isn't going to disappear anytime soon because this situation is no longer just about one foul. It's about trust. Do players trust the officiating? Do fans believe the league applies its rules consistently? Do athletes feel comfortable expressing their opinions publicly? And when a player truly believes they've been treated unfairly, what's the right way to respond? None of those questions have simple answers. One thing is clear though. The WNBA doesn't benefit when these controversies become deeply personal. Competitive intensity is part of professional sports. Hard fouls happen, heated arguments happen, and emotions run high, but there still has to be a line, and that line should apply equally to everyone. Maybe the biggest lesson from this entire situation is actually very simple. You can be upset without making accusations that can't be proven. You can disagree with a referee, believe a call was unfair, defend yourself, and even criticize the league. But once the conversation turns toward race, discrimination, or intentional targeting, the level of evidence needs to be much stronger. The same principle also applies to fans. When you see a viral clip, don't immediately assume you know what someone was thinking. You witnessed a moment, but you didn't see inside that person's mind. You don't know their exact intentions, and a sports controversy should never become an excuse to attack someone online. That applies to Carrington supporters, Cunningham supporters, and everyone watching from the sidelines. So what actually happened? DiJonai Carrington committed a high foul on Sophie Cunningham during a fast break. The officials reviewed the play, upgraded it to a flagrant 2, and ejected Carrington from the game. Cunningham reacted with frustration, and afterward Carrington shared a controversial social media post referencing white privilege. That post created an entirely separate controversy. However, claims that Carrington directly threatened Cunningham online should not be repeated as fact without reliable evidence. That's an important distinction because this story is already dramatic enough without adding claims that haven't been verified. The real question isn't whether we can make the controversy sound even bigger. The real question is whether we can discuss it honestly and fairly. Basketball is meant to be competitive. Players are expected to play with passion, and fans are always going to debate controversial moments. But when the final buzzer sounds, there should still be room for accountability, respect, and perspective. That's exactly what this situation needs right now because eventually Carrington and Cunningham will move on to their next games. Fans will move on to the next controversy. Another clip will go viral, another debate will dominate social media, but the standards we use to judge these moments are what truly matter. So now we want to hear from you. Do you believe Carrington's flagrant 2 ejection was justified? Was her social media response an understandable emotional reaction, or did it make the situation even worse? And do you think athletes should be more careful before making serious accusations immediately after emotional moments? Share your thoughts in the comments below.